How many snaps did they run in the 14 personnel?
That's only for us.
100% of the snaps.
What is going on, guys, and welcome into the second episode of the 5-Minute Debate. Today we are talking about two wide receivers. I won't say them quite yet, even though if you saw the video on YouTube.
It's in the title.
That's fair.
It's also in the thumbnail. So.
But if people just want to watch and they're not here to read, they don't know anything, and so it's a big surprise.
It's a surprise to nobody, but okay, go ahead, man.
Well, fine then. It's Terry Mclaurin and Chris Godwin. We're going to be debating these guys for Dynasty leagues. But before we do, just want to do a quick reminder that our Fantasy Combine, we've extended it not to today, but to next Friday. And so we want to surpass that $1,000 mark to be able to donate that to St. Jude and Melanoma Research Alliance. So head over to 14personnel.com, click on Fantasy Combine, get all the info you need, donate if you want, enter if you want to have some fun, and it just helps support some great causes. All right, let's get into it, Justin. Terry Mclaurin, Chris Godwin. You are talking Chris Godwin. I am talking Terry Mclaurin. Currently, for Dynasty leagues right now, their ADP is wide receiver 11 and wide receiver 12. Pick 32 for Terry Mclaurin and pick 33 for Chris Godwin. Obviously, they're both phenomenal players, but Chris Godwin, let's hear your argument.
All right, man. Chris Godwin, again, just to start. In Dynasty, you care about age. That is really what it comes down to, the crux of value, whether it should or not. That's what people care about. Chris Godwin has played 4 seasons and is a year younger than Terry Mclaurin still. And, I mean, regardless of where he goes this offseason, whether he stays in Tampa, goes to the Colts, he's going to be in a better situation than Terry Mclaurin is. Washington doesn't have a quarterback. Godwin, wherever he goes, he's proven, even with incapable quarterbacks like Jameis Winston, he can produce. I mean, this season, it felt like a down season coming off of, wide receiver 2 in 14 games. However, if he had played a full 16, he would have finished as the wide receiver 10. He was on pace for 87 catches, 1,100 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 250 fantasy points. The dude is a locked and loaded wide receiver 1.
Yeah, so I hear you with that. I think for me, when I think of the age, it's a year, and they're 25 and 26. So Dynasty leagues, I don't really care about that. But you said that he was projected, if you would have played 16 games, for 87 receptions and 1,100 yards.
He didn't play 16, I know.
Well, and even if he did, that's great. In 15 games, Terry Mclaurin had 87 receptions, 1,100 yards. And granted, he has him in the touchdown argument. I totally get that. I mean, I think Terry had 4 touchdowns where Godwin had 7 so far, in that short game span. But I think the other thing I think about when I look at these guys is they're both phenomenal players. They're both great route runners, which is obviously a key aspect of the wide receiver position. And it kind of helps them elevate past situational football. But I think when I look at Terry Mclaurin, his touchdown numbers don't really scare me that much because he actually saw more targets in the red zone than Chris Godwin, which isn't just like, oh, he saw more targets by I think 5 targets, but it's also he saw 23.5% of his team's red zone targets, where Chris Godwin only saw 10. So I think a lot of it has to do with, the offense Chris Godwin was on.
Right. I think Mike Evans, the machine that is Mike Evans, plays a big factor in that. And that's why I think Chris Godwin leaving Tampa, while he's not going to be with Brady anymore, I think that's going to be a bonus because he can then truly step into a bona fide wide receiver 1 role as opposed to a 1A, 1B, which, again, not necessarily caps their upside, but does have some limiting factors.
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing I think about with Terry is, I mean, he might be a year older, but I think he came into the NFL as a much more well-formed wide receiver, and I think that's part of it. He's been able to put up over the last 2 seasons over 2,000 yards receiving, and he's done it with Alex Smith, Taylor Heineke, Dwayne Haskins, Kyle Allen, Case Keenum, and Colt McCoy. Not only is that a ton of quarterbacks, but it's a ton of horrible quarterbacks.
Alex Smith is competent.
Not the Alex Smith he got, though. And that's the point here. If you're winning Comeback Player of the Year award, you're not like an elite player at the quarterback position. So I think
once bad. Yeah, that's
right. Exactly. So I think if you put any quarterback with Terry McLaurin, I'm confident he's going to kill it. And I am pretty confident with Godwin, but we've already seen Terry play with horrible quarterbacks and do really, really well. Where we've only seen Chris Godwin play with Tom Brady or Jameis Winston, who hasn't been a great quarterback, but he throws the ball like crazy. You know,
he's phenomenal for fantasy production.
Right.
But, I mean,
exactly.
when you just again and looking at Godwin, what he did this year, just in terms of efficiency, which is why I'm so high on him, because again, if his targets increase, the production is going to be there. I mean, there's a reason he was wide receiver 2 last season in 14 games. This year, I mean, he was 8th in fantasy points per target and 5th when the quarterback targeted him.
Yeah.
He makes smart plays. He makes good plays. Again, that sounds basic, but that's a key part of being a top wide receiver is making the job of your quarterback a lot easier. And I think he does that better than almost anybody in the NFL.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think obviously with Godwin, landing spot will determine like what his volume kind of stuff is going to look like. We know his skill is special, but for Terry McLaurin, really no matter who they add this offseason, his volume is almost guaranteed. I mean, in 15 games this year, he was tied with Tyreek Hill with 134 targets this season. And I mean, I don't know if you can see that from many other players. He was, like I said, he was top 10 in the league, tied with Tyreek Hill. He averaged 8.8 targets per game in 2020. And he averaged 8.5 yards per target in an offense that was like absolutely horrible. I mean, we saw it. And that's with the fluctuating quarterback. So I think they're both phenomenal players, but I do give the edge to Terry. I think he's a little bit more of a big time playmaker. And so that's why I kind of still lean Terry here.
So my last point, and I'll make it quickly because I know we're just over 5 minutes here, but Godwin was only on pace over that 16-game stretch to see 112 targets. Any team that goes out and pays him, 17, 18, $20 million a year is going to throw the ball to him more than that. It's almost a guarantee. He's going to be in that 130-point range, which, again, that's where Terry is, or 130 target range, excuse me. And I think with how efficient he is, and again, how much he makes his quarterback better, I think that is the deciding factor for me. It's just a matter of volume.
Yeah, totally. And I think landing spot, even though we just talked about it not being a huge deal, it's still going to matter. And so that's the other reason why I kind of lean Terry. We know what his role is right now. But all right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Comment below on who you think won. DM us at Justin_14P or at Marco_14P. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you guys next time. Peace.